Nick, a lot to get into today, but we had another scrimmage under our belt for the spring football practices. We're about 2/3 of the way through. So give us the update in Gator country.
Yeah, I think it was we put our insider report out Thursday. Said that Xavier Henderson had caught 3 touchdowns, and then Billy Gonzalez and Xavier Henderson confirmed that Saturday. I think if you were giving out MVP awards, he would have gotten one there. And other than that, it was just another day where the defense kind of outperformed the offense. Now, I say that, but also a couple starting offensive linemen, Kingsley Aguakin and Kingsley Aguakin mainly wasn't playing. Played maybe a series, so the defensive line started creating havoc.
We did get an update on his name though, his pronunciation.
Aguakin. Yeah, Aguakin. That's like who was it? Who was the Dolphin cornerback that like in year 10 of his career was like, "Hey, you've been saying my name wrong."
Oh, yeah, this happened a few times. It's like the Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce. Their last name is actually Kels, and they thought it would be appropriate at the Super Bowl to say it's actually Kels and not Kelce. It's too far gone. You got to make that correction early on.
Yeah, so UF this year, I think they're going to add it to the website. They had the players say their names, and I got that file, and I clicked Kingsley's, and I'm like, are you crazy? He's been here 4 years. I've been saying his name completely wrong for 4 years, and no one ever was like.
That's every player for me. So,
Egukan.
I think once one person says it, you just like that's how we go. We assume the research has been done.
So he was out, and I think the defensive line started creating havoc. Graham Mertz had turnover in the red zone, and I think the biggest thing that we've been watching with the quarterback battle is they brought Graham Mertz in to start. He wasn't going to be gifted that. Would he earn that job? When we left the spring game last year, there was no question who was starting between Anthony Richardson and Jack Miller. I don't know that we're going to leave the spring game Thursday with a starting quarterback.
So who hit the touchdowns to Xavier Henderson? Somebody threw him the ball.
I think Jack Miller threw 2. I think Mertz had 1.
Okay.
Love to hear that from Xavier Henderson, man. Billy G's back. I thought like our issues with wide receiver last year wasn't just these guys can't separate. Even the slowest receivers can run routes to set up DBs and know how to position themselves on the field to get open. So Billy G did a good job with that with Freddie Swain and the other guys that we had when Mullen first got here. So to hear that Xavier Henderson is separating and making some plays, that's a plus. I like to hear that. Mm-hmm. Offensive line wise, I think we're gonna be okay once everybody get in. We need some depth, but defensive. Are you guys shocked the defense is winning? I think defense is gonna be our strength. I've been saying that a little bit on the roll up. I think this year, as bad as defense was last year, us getting better straight down the middle, and we're gonna have to depend on unless we find a QB in the portal and something changes. We're gonna have to depend on the run game and the defense a lot. Old school football,
Big Ten football with a couple Big Ten quarterbacks.
All right, let's go through the rest of your notes there. So we had Xavier Henderson, 3 touchdowns. Caleb Douglas had a touchdown. Spoke to the media for the first time. Just good insight from him. A lot expected out of him in his sophomore year. Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne both had long rushes. Let's see. Miguel Mitchell was back, as was Taraja Mitchell. Cameron Jackson is continuing to dominate, even though the offensive line is a little bit patchwork right now. Always great to see transfers coming in, the ones that you expect to come in and contribute right away, doing a good job just about 10 practices through. Justice Boone, who we talked about pretty extensively on Wednesday, had a sack. And then Jason Marshall, the aforementioned interception in the red zone, he had that. So definitely hoping for a lot of these guys that were role players last year and a lot of the guys that maybe didn't live up to the expectations that were given to them already having good spring practices. We talked about kicker on the last show on Wednesday, and Trey Smack had a 45-yard field goal made, which is good. Florida has won consistently with good kicking, so it's going to be important to make sure that they figure that piece out. Jordan Castell and Jalen Kimber. Jalen Kimber is actually starting opposite of Jason Marshall. Him and Devin Moore are competing for that job, although Devin Moore is still in a non-contact jersey. Who do you guys see winning that battle, Jalen Kimber or Devin Moore, based on what we know right now?
Devin Moore.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to be healthy, but
you got to stay healthy. And to be fair to Jalen Kimber, he played all last year with a broken hand. So we haven't even seen his potential or his best football yet. So that hasn't really been a competition this spring, just because Devin Moore's been out in a non-contact jersey for all of spring, really. But I think Devin Moore has such a high ceiling. I was really impressed with him last year in the little bit we saw of him before the shoulder injury. So that'll be interesting. And Jaden Hill, we'll see how he does at nickel. I think that's a position, we're 5 days away from the portal opening again. A position that Florida will go after, trying to find a nickel.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear Jordan Castell name. I mentioned him on the Wednesday show. I've just been hearing that he's making some noise at the safety position. How was the safety position in the scrimmage? Is Kamari Wilson, who's the starters, and how's that room shaking out?
Yeah, it's Kamari and Miguel. And I think that Florida will be looking for a safety that can start in the portal.
Okay. Any updates on linebacker?
Your starters, I think, are going to be Trahaja. I'm probably getting that wrong now that I've made a big deal about saying the names correctly. It'll be Mitchell and Shamar. Wingo's been out there, but also non-contact. He's had 2 surgeries this offseason. I've been impressed with Mitchell. The very first practice we went out to, he was making calls and checks. And I was like, okay, this kid isn't messing around. He showed up. He knows the playbook well enough that he's telling guys who have been in the program where to go. With him, he's going to have to stay healthy. He's had a bunch of injuries at Ohio State. He's been in non-contact for about half the spring, but I think that was kind of just load management and just get him to the fall more so than, hey, he's actually hurt. And even when he's in non-contact, he's like shadow boxing on off to the side, going through the drills and taking mental reps as well. So I've been impressed with him. I think Wingo, I had penciled in to start, and now I think it'll be a battle between those two, but it might go to Mitchell. And Shamar James been good. Scooby Williams had a really good scrimmage.
Yeah, that's my next question.
Moving back inside, so you've got some depth there. But if I had to pick 2 starters right now, it would be Shamar and Mitchell.
Nice.
Let's see, going more through here. Obviously, the Gators are struggling at tight end with depth right now, amongst other things. But Keon Zipper, Dante Zanders, and Jonathan Odom are all out for the spring. Arlis Boardingham, he looks the part, but getting a lot of first-team reps out there. And then Hayden Hansen is the backup to Arlis Boardingham right now. Let's see. Aaron Gates was out. Micah Mazuka was out. Cameron Waits was out. And Derek Wingo all were out. Jake Slaughter played center during that game as well. Nick, there is a quarterback that has not been talked about much on this show because we just don't think that he's truly probably going to be the starter. But Max Brown is playing, has grown and improved this spring and this offseason. Any other additional tidbits out of Max Brown? The fan base is eager and constantly comments on YouTube about Max Brown.
Man, it was Murder Mertz, and now they're calling for Max Brown. Max is the 3rd string quarterback. I think he's gotten a lot better, but that's relative to where he was. The only thing I think he has an advantage right now is that he has an athletic ability that Graham Mertz and Jack Miller don't have. And both those guys, I mean, they're not like 38-year-old Peyton Manning, who was, a stature at that point in his career back there. They can run a little bit, but not in the way that Max Brown can. I just don't see Max Brown being really in the race, in the running right now when I look at Miller and Mertz and how things are looking in practice when they shake out with the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s.
I'm interested to see how different the offense looks this year. Like with Mertz. That's what I'm most excited about this spring game this week, to see what the run attack looks like. I know they're gonna keep it somewhat vanilla. They're not gonna go crazy because it's spring football, but we get a good glimpse of the play calling, what these guys, the type of packages they want to run with these guys. If we're running a lot of 12 formation and sets, like I just want to see that type of stuff, what the offense look like.
And Billy Napier said something interesting the last time we talked to him. We all kind of knew that something was bothering him, but Billy Napier finally said, because we asked him how different is the offense going to be. You don't have the magic eraser, which was Anthony Richardson's running ability, and if you called a bad play, he can run it for a first down 40 yards and erase your bad call. He said, well, really, we didn't have a lot of the stuff that we would have liked to because of the quarterback situation, because Jack was hurt and they only had Kitten at the time and Brown. So we didn't want to run him and get him hurt, even though we asked him that point blank last year. And he said, no, absolutely not. We're running everything. So maybe the offense won't look that different because they were kind of handcuffing themselves just because they had to, because you didn't have any experience behind Anthony Richardson, who, Utah game was not experienced either, only a second start.
Right.
Do you think he didn't put that out in the media last year because that puts him at a disadvantage if teams know they're not going to run? They found it out anyway.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. I don't expect him to be like, listen, Anthony has a sore foot, a sprained ankle, so we're not going to run him. And the other defensive coordinator is like, oh, thank you. I don't expect him to say that stuff. But he comes out and says, yeah, no, like the questions you guys were asking and that fans were asking, yes, Anthony was hurt and we were taking stuff out or not calling stuff because one, we didn't have anyone behind him. We couldn't afford him to get hurt. Then he got rolled up in a second play against Kentucky, and now is hurt and playing through it. So now you're not running him as much either. So maybe the offense that we saw last year will look similar to this with all of that considered, that you don't have that same runner, but you weren't using that runner in that way last year.
If they had Jay Slaughter at center, how did Kearney or whoever backed up him? I want to know about, of course, Slaughter, but his backup as well. Yeah,
so Najee and Rod Kearney have both been getting high marks, been talked about highly. I think what's interesting is that Kearney was a guard in high school, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And now he's been playing center. Najee was a center at IMG, and he's been playing guard. So they kind of flipped him. Really, for me, once Mike and Mazuka went down, it's been Christian Williams and Najee at left guard. And Najee's been great. I don't know if you start a freshman. We have to see what the timeline is for Mazuka after his shoulder surgery. And then I think Jake Slaughter would be the backup. Jake Slaughter could end up starting at a guard spot, but I think even if Jake Slaughter was starting at a guard spot and Kingsley got hurt, they would slide Jake over. So I think Jake will be second, and then Rod will be third there.
What are we seeing out of Jack Miller or Graham Mertz? Obviously, you don't see a lot in practice, but their ability to be somewhat mobile.
Jack's mobile. I think Graham, like I said, they're not statues, but it's not anywhere near what you had last year with Anthony Richardson. I don't know that you're going to be calling design runs for them, but they're not just a sack waiting to happen.
Yeah. Want to ask, but going back to tight end, I know we're bouncing kind of all over the place here. Tight end, Arliss Boardingham right now is taking advantage of his opportunity with the injuries in front of him, to Xanders, to Odom, and then to Keon Zipper. Where do you think, when healthy, where Florida has him on the depth chart?
I think he's a guy who probably would have gotten some run even before the injuries, and Zip's probably going to miss the entire season.
Of course.
Lang, I keep calling him Lang. Xanders, excuse me. Xanders is going to come back. It's just a little sprain in the shoulder. He'll be there. I think he starts. For whatever you feel about him, he started, I think, every game last year. And I think it'll be him and Arliss with Hayden behind them, and and Arliss can kind of play that H. And I've seen him get better with his hand in the ground as well as a blocker. But I think he was going to be someone who would have gotten some burn even without the injuries.
And Arliss, obviously a bigger guy, you obviously has no problem blocking. Obviously have seen some success with him in terms of catching the ball. Do you think that that's probably your predominant? Maybe I know Jonathan Odom, caught some passes last year, but who's probably your possession tight end out of that group? Is it Boardingham right now?
Yeah, it's definitely Boardingham right now. Odom's been out after knee surgery from the bowl game, so it's definitely Arliss right now. And then we'll see how Tony Livingston continues to progress. There's a lot of guys in that room. I think the room is completely different than it was last year. Even though that Hayden and Arliss were there, but they were redshirting. So I don't know if the position is a strength yet, but I do feel better about that room at this time than I did this time last year.
Yeah, because that was probably on the offensive side of the ball last year, by far the biggest weakness that Florida had. And it might not be a strength, but if it's not your most glaring weakness, that's obviously a drastic improvement as well.
Well, for the most part of the season, they were just, an extra small offensive lineman.
Perfect. Anything else that you want to discuss? We've got the spring game on Thursday. So what's this week look like for them? Obviously, they were probably off yesterday.
Yeah, off yesterday. They will they're off today. They'll practice Tuesday, walk through Wednesday, and game on Thursday.
Perfect. And then you guys will be there. Nick, I know you're contractually obligated. Silky will be there. Just doing a little tailgate hopping. And
they're doing tailgates? I'm just vibing.
I don't know. It doesn't surprise me if they're going to do some tailgates.
No, I'm not tailgating. I'm just kicking it throughout the city, swing through some bars, hit a couple spots like that, and then check out the game,
Say goodbye to Grog for me.
We'll be able to make it.
I heard that purchase fell through.
Oh, very good.
The streets are talking. I have not confirmed anything. Yeah. That's just what I heard this weekend.
That would be outstanding news. I know a couple of the women's softball players that were there when I was there. Ellie Gardner and some of her friends were going up to the spring game this week just to say goodbye to Grog. So hopefully it's not a goodbye and it's I'll see you later.
No,
because
eventually it's a goodbye.
It's unbelievable that place is just health codes still allowed to be open.
I would agree. Of the three salty balls and Grog, that is the one that was least attended by yours truly. Still a frequent flyer, but instead of being, the elite status like I was at Salty and Balls, I was probably just more of a gold member.
Yeah, I don't even like being. That was going to come off weird. I don't even like going to Balls for fear that Grog's just going to fall on my head.
Well,
I guess it's over Salty too.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I would say that right now you are probably a little bit higher of the age that would normally attend Balls or Grog. Salty's got a little bit of a mixed crowd of older alumni that a small group of them still call it the dog, which is of course incorrect, but no, it'd be great to see. And at the end of the day, whether they stay Grog, Balls, Salty, whatever, you do want to see, or at least I want to see, there still be a midtown there with the bars right across the street from the stadium and not just expensive high rises that nobody's living in. So we will be anxious to see if Nick's coming with facts or if he's just shooting from the hip on the real estate deal. We'll never know. Well, we look forward to a rundown for the game next week.
Do we know how they split the team up yet?
Last year was ones versus twos versus ones, and then Max Brown will run the threes and fours. We didn't ask Billy. When did we talk to him? I think we talked to him Tuesday. We didn't ask him how he was going to split it up, but that's how they did it last year. So I expect that.
Speaking of spring game, Billy Napier was asked about playing another school during the spring game. And Billy Napier said, I'd have no issue with that. I have no issue with it at all. There would be a lot of positives that could come with it. I hear all the comments out there and I agree wholeheartedly. There was certainly no comment to which he was saying that he agreed to wholeheartedly, other than potentially playing that game against another school. Seems to be gaining some momentum. Just don't know if I see that ever happening. All right, let's get into a brief ad read. Then we got a couple of questions here in YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, turn notifications on, all that kind of fun stuff. But with that, we do want to give a shout out to our friends over at the Gatorverse, the newest Florida Gators NIL platform that is out there. Go visit Gatorverse.io. Go support the men's basketball team. Go support the gymnastics program. And in the next few weeks and few months, there should be some more announcements about other ways to help and benefit the student athletes. We are going to probably be doing a pop-up this summer with the Gatorverse in Gainesville. So stay tuned for more information there. But as always, please go check out Gatorverse.io and support your University of Florida athletes. All right, let's go back into the chat, and then we have some super chat questions. Let's see here. Morning from Tarpon Springs. Thanks, Twan, for listening. Nathaniel Rogers said the spring game will be considered a success. If we land 3 or 4 commitments, we will get into recruiting here momentarily. And then from our friend 904 Wheelan, does UF pursue a portal quarterback, or will Austin Simmons, the 2025 quarterback commit, reclassify?
I think he could reclassify. Know that in the coming weeks. And it all depends on who goes into the portal and if you can get them to come to Florida. You're not taking a kid just for a number. If there's someone that you think can start, that can come in, learn the playbook over the summer and compete to start against Utah, then you take them. I don't think Austin Simmons is the guy that's going to start against Utah. So if Florida, even if he does reclassify, Florida could still be in the market for another quarterback, but it wouldn't be as dire if you get another quarterback, if Simmons does reclassify.
Yeah, I don't think my decision would be predicated on Simmons reclassifying.
Mm-hmm.
I will be looking for a 1-year rental. Somebody talented enough that's in another quarterback battle that you can land. I wouldn't just get a guy, but if you can find a 1-year rental, and I think we should be, just to be 100% with where I stand, I think we should be out there for the quarterback now. I don't think I think you need to be tampering a little bit.
Well, there's Florida would never tamper.
No, but I can't.
Soak the tamperer.
Yeah, I could tamper. I could be the 101 member on the staff, and I could be the off the book tamper guy, allegedly. But no, I do think they need a quarterback. They need to find a guy. It's a lot of quarterback battles going around the country. I understand the situation at Ole Miss. Don't fully understand who will get a waiver or how that will work. But I don't think all 3 of those guys will stay. We'll see how it all plays out with the situation at Texas, Bama. But I do think we need a quarterback, and if we don't, then it's gonna take my expectations down a bit going into this fall. I like all the pieces around the quarterback position. I think they have the skill positions are on deck, ready to perform. You got some guys, you got some talent, you got some difference makers that just got on campus that could add you a spark. You have the offensive line, I think, to run the ball. You got the defense this year that you didn't have last year. Depth at the right spots. I just think the biggest question mark on this team isn't tight end or any other spot, is that quarterback. If we can solidify that, I think we could solidify 8-9 wins very easily, possibly 10 with the right quarterback, because the pieces are around that spot. We just need that spot to be on point.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the biggest thing, is if Florida can find that rental, and if that rental wants to come to Florida. I know Grayson McCall is a name that's still out there from Coastal Carolina, still there for right now. May be entering the portal as well, but certainly Florida doesn't need a body. They need the body to be quarterback, or else you just kind of have to roll with what you have. You have DJ Lagway coming in. than Austin Simmons. And again, Austin Simmons is not going to be a guy that could start game one or probably even year one, even though he's a little bit older at 17 years old. Probably not a situation Florida wants to find itself going against Utah and Georgia and those with Tennessee with a 17-year-old starting at quarterback. Let's see. Twan Marley asks, is Florida going after a portal strong safety or free safety? I'd imagine it'd be a free safety.
I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
A starter.
Yeah, anybody in the second window, you got to be bringing in as a starter. Interested to see who we are, because right after the spring game too, I think you're gonna see some guys start declaring to enter the portal as well. So we're gonna see some guys leaving. We'll see how both things shake out, exit and entrances. Man, it's about to be some more activity. Bird's the word.
Absolutely. All right, let's see here. Let's get into Bird is the word. Silk's on a constant DM train with Bird, just sending names.
I just got his notification on.
Yeah.
We haven't chatted personally.
All right, let's